Okay.
I'm going to
Hello,
share a
everyone.
window. Hello.
Welcome to 133A episode.
Yeah,
There's no
It's one,
4.
two, three.
because we're Chinese. I'm going to share later. So this is 133A
Yeah.
episode of Death Kami. I'm Swimming.
I am Tristan.
And
And the other guy is Chiliang, of course.
with a ridiculous haircut.
Yes.
Mhm.
I cut it myself. Give it some
It's a
And-
tragic.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
before the episode, we were talking about your shaver and how your ROI with the shaver is
Yeah.
getting better this year. Like I mean, you're getting your ROI this year
It will pay itself.
with all of the hair that you've cut from, and all of the
Whenever I
money
want.
that you've saved from the barber. And also, before we started, we were discussing with Suming about his new laptop.
Yeah. So my ThinkPad, that's my laptop. Even though the company pay half of it, but that is effectively my computer.
Oh,
Um,
are you getting reimbursement from the company for the half,
yeah,
or did you buy
yeah.
it and then?
It's reimbursed slowly lah. It's one of those slowly counting lah.
Okay.
So it comes
plan
bit by
lah.
bit.
Are you
So-
getting the tax deduction for this?
Likely.
Do you get full tax deduction for that?
Huh? What?
But full tax deduction. But I think it's only 2,500 max, right? So
Yeah, 2,500, and then there's another 2,500 for the lifestyle.
Yeah. So that's the books and stuff.
but you can mix it together, right?
Plus, yeah, you can't mix it, so it's like it has to be two purchases, separate purchases, I think.
Okay. So
But because lifestyle, so the thing about lifestyle, they also include your internet bills.
yeah, that
So
already
once you-
that already pay itself. If you
Correct. So by the time you add your internet bills through your phone, you're already at the minimum, already 1,000 ringgit.
Mm.
1,000 ringgit already. Then
yeah,
let's say
even if
you
you're on a
add
50 ringgit plan, it's 600 already.
Yeah, so and you add some books that you get, your technical books. So that's already add to that. 2005 is not a lot actually, believe it or not.
But do you know if the O'Reilly subscription counts as books?
Uh,
So you don't have to buy any of the books. It's like a
You
year
can
subscription
try-
for 40
you can
US dollars.
It's-
I don't know. I don't want to get caught by LHDN for
it's
misdeclaring.
very scary. Like I get the tax rebate this year. Like the email was so scary.
yes.
Let me find out. We reimburse the like quote unquote like reimburse your tax rebate, but we reserve the right to request an audit.
Yes. But in lifestyle, you also it's easy to do books, but internet is part of those, so it's easy to mix up. Internet are the easiest thing for you to prove that you actually pay for those things because you have bills for that. Books, you need to keep a receipt lah, but you buy it online, it's easy.
Yeah, it's
Shall we
easy.
go to that? Shall I go to the news and events before we
Yeah.
go to the?
Just go ahead.
So let's start with meetups. We have nothing. Actually, we have Rails event next week.
Ruby event, yes. Next week, we are doing deployment to DigitalOcean. If you would like some DigitalOcean credits, DigitalOcean is going to give away some access codes.
Yep.
And so, because this was from when we were talking about last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, about DevOps, people doing infrastructure and not doing development,
Yeah.
and the other way around, the developers pushing all of the ops jobs to the DevOps people, which doesn't make sense because DevOps is supposed to be developers knowing how operations actually work
Right.
so that they can work together, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways that we can make sure that the new generation of Ruby developers actually know what the hell is happening when they deploy something. Like, what does it mean to deploy code to a production server? So yeah, and we're doing it in cooperation with DigitalOcean.
And with this, I hope that the young generation will not be corrupted by serverless frameworks.
Why not?
It has its uses,
I know,
but
I know.
it's as usual. It's not the answer
I
to
mean,
everything. I mean,
if I get paid to do serverless,
yeah,
I'm happy about it as long as somebody
of
pay for it.
course. Mm.
I do use it. I don't hate it. I can like it, but as I say, move ops to the other direction lah. So okay, so the first thing on our news is AWS had a new app runner. It's a way for you to run AWS no web services which uses container. So this will be something like Heroku, except the UI is a bit weird.
You mean
No, actually, it's a bit
AWS?
worse than Heroku in the way that these have more things. But this is a new thing lah. This is a new thing for you. Yet another way for you to run your web application lah. So anything interested? If not, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Sublime 4 is out after a while. It was free for a while. So yes.
I think it has M1 or Apple Silicon support now. I think.
Supply is still the
yeah.
bay for a lot of people. Is they're the first one that I mean they are the first modernized.
They copied a lot from TextMate, but they popularized it because Sublime. So they copied from TextMate. They even have support for TextMate plugins, but Sublime was cross-platform and TextMate was Mac only. So that's the thing, right? And then of course, like you have all of these Electron things, and search and loading files is still very much faster in Sublime than in VS Code or Atom.
So now you
can
get
do a
GPU
lot of
memory.
yeah, because this is not an Electron app. This is not a website. Basically,
Yeah,
it's
the
an
native.
actual native application.
So
It's
yeah,
quite fast.
if you actually like Sublime Text, there's new update. Try
Yeah,
it.
go for it. The trial is technically forever, just like WinZip or WinRAR.
Yeah, but please pay them. They put a lot of work on this.
Or you should ask your employer to reimburse you for that
Yeah.
because it's part of your job, right?
Yeah.
It's your
Can we put
tool
that under
to do your
lifestyle?
job. Hmm, I
No,
don't
it's
know.
not under lifestyle, but okay. Believe it or not, I don't know a lot of employers that help pay for IDE. Interesting. Never mind. Let's move on.
I mean, maybe that's one topic that we can talk
I think
about.
one
Like,
of the thing is if even if it doesn't happen in your workplace, try to ask for it lah.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's right.
exactly. And it's one of the topics that we can talk about, like how to get what you need from your employer, like how to convince them, like, hey, I need a faster machine because, like, if you want me to work faster, then I need something like this,
Yeah.
or I need these subscriptions to further my learning, and
Yeah.
it's just really a negotiation with your employer.
Correct. Correct.
It's always anything is a negotiation
Correct.
to reach
So
an
the next
agreement.
thing is these are open source newsletter and mailing list manager.
Yeah, in a single binary.
Yeah. In the good old days, we have a thing called
Listserv, no, just kidding. It's
it's
IRC
after
listserv.
listserv. It's we actually my OSS use it. I don't remember the name.
What, MailChimp? Not MailChimp?
There is pre-MailChimp. So either way, so now you have,
Aweber? No, that was, I don't know.
yeah,
Okay,
it's
anyway.
very old. I don't remember. It's on the same time where planet.org is there. So either way, so this is mailing list manager. So if you have run mailing list, you can do that, and the deployment is easy nowadays. It's one binary, and you can use Docker if you need it. So yeah, so does it mean that DevCammy will have mailing list? Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah,
Maybe one day.
Once we have better summaries of all of those links, instead of like just having like as per title or whatever
or you
in the
can or
description.
streaming can start a
Yeah.
newsletter like
Yes.
his weekly writing, his
Yes.
weekly essay.
I need to write more. Been slacking on that. So let's move on. This is a cool story. So as it turns out, the Rockwell chip actually had
Rockchip.
a deviation for because of Julian calendar. Now you may thought Julian calendar is not used anymore. That's not true. Bank
It's
actually
still very
uses
commonly used.
Julian. Bank still use Julian calendar in at least their system. I remember when I was still working with mainframe system, the ZOS. Those guys, COBOL, still had native support for Julian calendar. It's yes. So yeah, it's a very cool story. And for Rockchip, they have this problem with one of their driver. So this actually, as a result, they write code, write a Linux patch, a patch of Linux kernel to actually compensate the changes, the syncing. So it's a cool story. Anything to add on this?
Nah.
No. Okay, let's move on. This is actually from Kevin. This from LinkedIn Engineering is yet another forecasting library. So you use this to actually check for your patterns and whatnot. So people use this for see if there's anomaly and whatnot. So yeah. So they use it to provision infrastructure, handle budget decision. And yeah, it's pretty interesting, and it's actually one of the use cases for machine learning libraries actually. So if there's nothing, let's move on. Salesforce DNS. Salesforce developer had actually a quick fix to the DNS. As a result, that break everything else by making people unable to access Salesforce website. So DNS is actually very nasty. I know. I used to write DNS backend. Uh, the way it works is very nasty because those things are not single system. DNS is one of the true distributed system, which is why they actually how does a local DNS knows address they do not know about, because they actually propagate all the way up, then get the result all the way down. So yeah, DNS they use DNS as a quick fix. As a result, they mess everything up. Lah. Anything else you want to add?
This production thing is not easy lah.
No, it's not.
Sometimes if you have especially for system in scale, there's a lot of small mistakes that we can easily overlook. So
Correct.
I cannot say it's something that it wouldn't happen to us lah.
Correct.
This has to be learn from these stories and try not to repeat the mistakes lah that somebody else did.
Yeah. So and the last one, Fuchsia OS is now used in Google devices. This time the Nest Hub.
In fact, I have a first gen Nest Hub.
Yeah, first gen Nest Hub.
Yeah, it still looks the same to me. I'm not sure if it's updated.
It's behind the scene because the display is built on Flutter. Then everything else they just use. Then everything behind the operating system is one of those behind the scene thing. Nobody knows what the hell is happening.
Yeah,
it's like the blockchain changes.
The migration seamlessly is a pretty good job.
Yeah. So for me, I'm just happy that I may have an operating system I can play with. I hope. So yeah. So one thing that we don't cover, which maybe we will capo later, is we don't cover in our bus corner is the vaccine side. I have a lot of complaint. It's not just the system. A lot of it is the people. I think a lot of the. I'm going to stop sharing screen because we do not do this anymore.
How do people check? I don't know.
Check what?
I mean the Nest Hub. I don't know how people check. I cannot see the version.
Okay. We figure out later. So we have a lot of things to capo about. Do I want to talk about the vaccine side? I kind of want to talk about vaccine side
Up
because
to you.
We can talk about your entry to
Yeah.
the TensorFlow thing.
Yeah, something that's
What you
more
were
ah,
just
fun.
showing.
about that, about
Mm.
that. Oh no! Now I have to open my device again. TensorFlow. Ooh, dot camera. Wait,
But
wait, wait.
what so what while you're opening it, what's the idea?
It's a TensorFlow like micro competition site.
Yeah, I know, but are you doing your quiz still, or are you doing vision?
Oh
Are you
no.
doing
Okay.
sound?
Okay. So there is actually, we talked about another machine learning competition not too long ago. That's the Hexter IO, Hexter IO, uh, Tiny ML Vision Challenge. This is
Yeah.
not it. This is
Oh,
not
this is
it.
different. Mm.
This is actually a smaller price, but then the thing that you do is also the thing that you can do is also a lot simpler. So I can tell you that I can tell you that I cannot do Gui on a microcontroller. The reason is so I'm going to show you. I hope I
What's
can show you.
the
Uh
what's
huh.
the difference between a gui and a pastry?
Good question, but not something I'm going to
Let's
tell you right
say
now.
is curry puff gui?
It's a pastry and a Gui. I don't know.
It's
So
okay.
So
Go.
your machine learning model, traditional machine learning models that you most of us read about, uh, is pretty big. So let's say use a YOLO model, which I use. The if you use the normal network, as in it's not a giant size, it's like the normal size, the medium size. A model size can up to 200 megabyte. That's the model file. Your microcontroller, for example, this is the Arduino Nano 33 Sense BLE.
GLE?
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, with the sense. Oh, so it has
yeah.
all of the
It had
microphone
this
and sensors.
correct. This thing only have maybe like 1000K, I believe. Was it 1000K? No, I only have 1 megabyte of memory. I hope you can
Mm.
see it. You can't.
But that's running the NRF 52. No,
Correct.
NRF. No, not the 52, but the 52814.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they only have on board 256 kilobyte of SRAM. So you need to stuff your neural network on something on that size, not the flash memory, right? Probably can use the flash memory, probably won't.
It really depends on how you do it because you can put stuff on the flash and do something like paging. This is like the DOS days, when you have your
Yes.
expanded RAM and then you
Yes.
have 640 kilobytes of actual memory and you page in and out data. So
So
you can do it like that.
yeah, but your neural network is a binary, so you need to. So then the library need to do all the smart thing. Then you have to implement that. They'll get really slow. So so as a result, when you by the time the data in, then you page to read through the data will run away. So all the result you get will be delayed. So
So it
which
has
is
to be
why
real time, right? Yeah, real time analysis.
correct. So the challenge here is how do you stuff something small on a small neural network. So which is why for this competition, you're not going to do image and you're not going to do traditional machine learning with image at all because even the smallest neural network, or even a smaller one that we consider as small is still in megabytes, 10, 50 megabytes, right? It's not 1 or 2 megabytes, it's 50 megabytes, and which is actually pretty big. Actually, it's too big for microcontrollers. So which is why in some implementation, in the only implementation of image that I know of, that's the human detection. They actually have to do things like they have to squeeze the image into maybe 100 times 100 pixels. It's really small. Just to save memory, then they have to shrink down the network. So which is why for this competition, you are more likely to read the sensor on board, not necessarily on this sensor, but whatever you can think of, whatever you can think of. then build a small network. And the network chances is just like 2-3 layers. It won't be a very deep network. So this challenge is interesting because it really tests your creativity. More thing to play with. It won't be just image. That's one. So for example, this particular Arduino, they have a microphone. They have this guy. Do not say it.
And it's an actual microphone, right? That has
Yeah,
levels. It's
correct.
not where it just detects whether there is sound or not, and then you have
No,
a
no, no,
threshold.
no. You can use this to run what they call the micro speech demo. So you can actually say a word and the neural network will detect it. So it's actual microphone. They have the distance sensor, color sensor, then light sensor, and RGB LED. So this is actually a very capable microcontroller wise. Is very capable, and this will
How
be the
much is
sensor.
it?
This is a bit expensive to me. It's a bit expensive. This is like 200 ringgit, 245 ringgit.
You have all of those sensors anyway, so it's not that
Correct.
bad.
And plus BLE, more importantly BLE. So with this, you can be creative about you can have a smart way for you to do a Bluetooth keyboard, which is possible, right? You can write a Bluetooth keyboard. So you can use your gesture to send keyboard shortcut so that you can control presentation. That's one way to think about that. So the opportunity is there. What I want to do, I do not know yet. And
It has to be TensorFlow, right?
Huh?
Has to be TensorFlow.
Correct. So, and I read, and I'm going to show you one more thing. I hope I can. I don't like this because the source code is horrible. I give you la 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 la. Okay, TensorFlow Lite micro speech. Ta-da! Micro speech. The source code for the source code example from Google is actually very complicated, a bit too complicated for me. So you had all the supporting function that used by everyone else, but a lot of stuff. It will work, but it's a lot of stuff to read, so it's not something that you can change easily.
Are you limited to using the NRF SDK, or can you use Python, for example, MicroPython, the TensorFlow library?
No, your MicroPython TensorFlow library is horrible. What your OpenMV does with TensorFlow Lite is they actually implement the interpreter. So your TensorFlow Python library do a lot more stuff. You can do training and all that. But TensorFlow Lite Micro, even you implement it on, let's say for this guy, this is the OpenMV CAM, the one that implement inside is actually just the interpreter for the TensorFlow instruction. So let's say you compile a model, you get a binary file. So within those are actually the instruction.
But the application itself, like what is it running? Do you have to write C and interface with the SDK?
Yes. So how to train the process? Okay, so let's talk about high level process of how you do this. You train it using Python on whatever environment you have, using TensorFlow. Then you convert. Then after you train enough, then you compile in TensorFlow Lite. Once you have that, you have to do one conversion with the library. Then you have to use XXD to convert it to a C array.
So for the training, ideally the training is done on the device itself, and then TensorFlow Lite is also running on the device itself, right? Like if you're doing like what you have on there, right? Gestures.
Yeah.
That should be trained on the device itself so that it will learn on its own context.
So what you really do is, so before we even start training to collect data, what you do is to collect the sensor data. Then the collection either put on SD card or for the sometimes SD card, because that's what you do. More likely, you stream it with serial. You stream it serial. Uh, then you do your stuff lah. Actually, Edge Impulse, that Edge Impulse do something like that. Let me find Edge Impulse. Pulse. I hope I don't have a demo because I kind of focus on this. So Edge Impulse, what they do is it depends. But let's say it's onboard sensor. You will they will collect the onboard sensor, then save it locally. Then you push it to a neural network. Then they do the training. They generate the binary. Then they have a command line. There is a command line instruction that will actually flash the data back to your Arduino. So connect setting key So I wonder if I can use this for competition. I'll figure that out later. But Edge Impulse had some very good idea. So you see here, they actually read the data, then they start sampling, then they record the sample, then they send it to the machine, their neural network to do your training. You're not going to do onboard training actually. You have to collect your sample offline. So that's the processor, and that's the, I would say, interesting part of this project. And interestingly, this thing is doable, even though you have to collect your own data. It's doable because the data that you need is not a lot. Because you can imagine that it's an event. So what you do is you just slice down the event. Then after you slice down the event, then you do your training lah. Then you decide lah. But the only exception is, let's say you want to do voice activation. That one that cheat a little. So you can use your phone. You can use your phone to collect your sound, then label your sound, then train it, then flash it to your. Then through their firmware and the command line interface, they will flash it to your embedded device lah.
That's a bit problematic because again the quality of the microphone is different on the sensor. So you're actually training on the different data from what the sensor is going to be receiving.
What you usually do is, in fact, this is actually from other machine learning project. They actually downsample the sound. They do not use high, to save memory and training time. They usually reduce the sound quality. So if let's say it's from the Arduino, then you're probably not going to do anything. Then from your phone, very likely they're going to downsample and whatnot. Because it's one of those standard things that machine learning does, because you do not want to have perfect data.
In fact, because it's not going to match the thing, right? It's not going to match what you have on
correct
device.
And they do not want things like, last thing you want is they only understand my sound, right? So that's one thing. So they downsample data so that when even I say it, but if the downsample data, they still recognize me. So it would it's generalizing the model. It's part of it to generalize the model. So for sound, they have something like that lah. But for other sensor, you can use onboard. You can use onboard sensor to stream and collect. So not a big problem in there. And also, yeah. So anything else you want to know about TensorFlow Lite micro that I discovered if I go for that?
Like how far are you into this project?
I only get my device. 8 hours ago. But I finished Yeah. I finished reading the Tiny ML book. I've only finished the Tiny ML book uh, 2 days back. I actually bought the book. In fact, currently the resource is all over the place. The best resource that I have is unfortunately is the Tiny ML book. But the Tiny ML book, unfortunately, is also very dense in a way that they target the Spark Fun board. I think the book is also updated with this particular Arduino. And also, Google TensorFlow repository, uh, it's a lot of supporting function that would work in every single every single different board that they support. So the code is actually very complicated, which I yet in some place the code is a lot simpler. So I need to find out lah. So, but it's interesting. But then everything is interesting to me. So
Where will this fall in the developer roadmap that we've been talking about?
totally outside.
Okay.
This will be something that you explore. It's something that you explore on. It because in practice, this thing is something that you build inside your devices. Then, unfortunately, by the time they go into devices, they got bigger. They actually have bigger devices to run. You have this thing for activating a model.
Because unfortunately, many people, when they hear software developer, they only think about website and a form, and that's it, right? But
Yeah,
this is part of software development.
correct.
Sometimes you will be asked to gather data, but it's not a website form. It's it's just about these kinds of data gathering.
Correct.
Maybe you get to, like, I don't know, a car or something, like
So,
something with the vibrations of a car, let's say,
mhm.
and
So
how close is it to maintenance? Maybe that's something that you can think about.
yes, in fact, I know a lot of people in the software development community are from pure software background, but always are interested at things like robotics, things like cars. I can say that this area are outside of web development. Same idea exists. You still have to write code in a clean way, object-oriented way, but the API will be different. The UI will be different. So let's say somehow you're given a car, you have to build an interface, and in theory, the first way you do it won't be on the first way you do it, it won't be on HTML. You won't even get the nicest framework.
Unless you're running a Tesla, apparently they run HTML on. No, I don't know if they
So
actually run HTML, but might as well, with how
so
laggy the whole user interface is.
uh, Tesla, what I suspect they do is they spend time to build the engine, the browser engine and whatnot, because WebKit and all that are designed to run for embedded system. I mean, large-ish embedded system. So this is like your small computer. So once you port WebKit into these devices, you got a HTML engine, you got a CSS engine. As a result, then you can do that lah. But so you have to do that first. You have to do that first. You have to implement that first before you even able to use the tool that you're familiar with. So, for example, let's say you do Flutter. It's possible to run Flutter on this system. People have done that, but you have to have the knowledge to map those things into the API of the embedded devices. It's very low level.
So just an aside on the Tesla side comment. Apparently, they are using web. Are they, according to the job career page they have, they say our UIs are built with TypeScript, React Native, D3 Scale, WebGL, and the Godot engine.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
they are using web technologies on the UI. This is not
But-
just for the car, but for the power pack, for their
Yeah.
wall things.
So, and chances is they may also use a Linux computer and whatnot. So, I mean, once you have Linux can run everywhere and they can run modern
It's
software.
just it's just a OS. If it runs
Yeah.
Linux, it can run
Uh,
anything.
It's just that Linux have everything ported to them. So let's say you had a BSD based OS, now you have to port all the little things. BSD might not be too bad, but let's say Fuchsia. Let's say Fuchsia and you want a different HMI engine. Now you have to go a bit lower. In theory, I don't know the API
It's
for.
Fuchsia POSIX.
I think it's likely. I think
It
it's
got some sort
likely.
of POSIX.
Yeah, it's likely. So it won't be too bad, lah. So it won't be like a
Well,
alien
not really
operating
full,
system.
but some only.
It won't be like an alien.
I would
operating
guess it's similar because people are always going to like fall back onto what they know, right? And
Correct,
that's
correct,
worked
correct.
before. It might not be exactly the same, but it's similar. Like just how MS-DOS is similar to POSIX, but not really.
Yeah, correct. So it won't be a totally alien operating system, lah, you know what I mean? So even the ESP32 have some POSIX component inside. So it's definitely possible. So what I'm going to do with the competition, I'm thinking between people counter versus a system that say goodbye or hello, because this thing had a distance sensor. So the experiment
But,
here is
You need to
whether
have the velocity in which direction also, right? The bearing.
the direction sensor is a bit stupid lah.
Visual, I think, with visual.
Yeah, correct. So the experiment here is whether it's easy to do it. It's easy to do it using just maths. Point A, point B minus. If negative, then this is advent of code. I don't know. It's an experiment. I do not know whether it's silly or what.
Okay, you can show us that when you
Yeah.
finish.
Yes. So that's my Saturday lah.
You
And
better
this
finish.
thing, I hope to able to run the Edge Impulse image demo on it. But I can't do too many things. I probably use it to just take photo of birds or something. Automatic bird photo taker. Random shit swimming says. So that's TensorFlow Lite. Oh yeah, last thing about TensorFlow Lite. Last thing. This is not related. This is totally not related to microcontroller. Not at all. This one actually I already watched from Google I/O. The talks. So I think it's pretty cool actually. And I think somebody actually did a cake detector already. So this is cool for two reasons. One, so this one is actually example that you can use to actually see how to run a machine learning model. So this is almost like a GitHub for TensorFlow model. But that's not the cool thing actually. The cool thing here is within Python code, you can just import the model and use it. Let me. So can you see the source code that I highlight?
It's a bit small, but I mean it's fine. You can always just go to the image itself again.
So notice here, this is actually so you just import the layer. You just import the layer directly from TF Hub, and you just use it directly. So you're not going to download a model. They will handle it behind the scene likely, handle it behind the scene. So this make machine learning deep learning easier to use. So that's one. Then the second thing that interests me is they actually do a better version of the cake detector. Oops, I'm so sorry. I don't think. Okay, in some model, you actually allowed to upload photo online. Here on the website for you to test, but apparently it's not for everything. And finally, another interesting thing for me is it's possible. It's actually possible to use the model to on your mobile application, web application, not mobile. Mobile is given. So if you need it, you can actually use things like WebGL to power it better. But the task library is now available for web. So I can actually use it for experiment. Here you are. I wonder if I have a cake that I can use. Give me a moment. I think I may have some cake I can use. Show me, show me, show me, show me, show me.
Are they competing with your Quay detector?
They do not know about my Quay project. They
You can
don't
do
know
it
about
first.
my Quay
Quay or
project.
cake?
I
Queen
tested it with a
works.
cake detector. That's my thing. Let me pull it from my this.
Then suddenly they want a combination, a quake detector,
Yeah.
so Quay and a cake.
So that okay. So uh, okay. I think this only works on cake detector. So they detect cake, but okay, this is not as good.
Choose ramen.
So I like TensorFlow Hub because you can test your machine learning
What
model.
if you have a New York sandwich?
I don't know. I don't have sandwich to test. I don't have sandwich to test.
What if you as the Subway sandwich? Just
I don't know either, believe it or not. But this is awesome. TensorFlow Hub, interesting for me because it's easy to import. You can run this on browser. The documentation is a bit bad, but I saw the video on how to run it. Pretty interesting. So yeah, that I just discovered that I really like. So yes, anything interesting. So two things I capable about machine learning on edge. So there's the TF Lite Micro and TF Hub. What's the last thing you want to talk about?
The earphones that you ordered that didn't come, that didn't arrive. Like, why were you so excited with those earphones?
Oh, because my earphone is broken and this is echoing too. So
You don't have earphones at all?
I'm out of earphone.
Mm.
That's why I'm excited. I'm out of earphone.
Which earphone did you buy?
I have a Sony earphone that I bought 2 years back.
No, I mean the one that's arriving that didn't arrive
It's a
in time
Sony
for the.
wireless. It's a Sony Bluetooth earphone, but that one don't have an adapter. I just want to get one because I run out of place to put wires on my table.
Mm.
So
Okay.
it's not interesting. I'm excited because otherwise it'll be noisy for me to do this stuff. I rather I come to this so that I can use this and got good isolation between the sound.
Mm.
So yes. Then the last thing is, I mean, I'm technically a boss of someone, but that's not that important.
Yeah. I think
How
that's one
many
of the,
people?
Only one.
you start with one, then you have more.
I mean,
You
I'm effectively the senior dev. I'm not sure whether that even means anything.
you're gonna scale
Mm.
the team.
I
The
mean,
next thing you
it
know,
just means that my opinion, people take my opinion very seriously.
Yeah, but weren't you hired to give opinions? That was
That's the
the job
point, right?
description, right?
That's the point, right? So I can't do crazy thing that I do in on app last time.
What sort of crazy thing you can't you
Take down
yes.
servers and stuff.
You're not supposed to
Yeah.
do that normally, right?
But I mean, you can do it like as a learning experience for the other people,
Yeah.
right? Like this is what happens, so don't do it
Yes.
again.
But so this time is it's a bit more, yeah, it's a senior dev, so I have to give my opinion on stuff, and I'm the guy with more traditional experience. When I mean traditional, I don't mean COBOL and ZOS. It means that I'm one of the dev that still know how to do ops. So, and I'm one of those guys that take testing, annoy people to make sure they do testing and all that.
So maybe you should try attend the Ruby meetup next week
Yeah.
because we are doing ops. And then
Yes.
because I don't know, like I'm not sure how you're doing deployment at your place, but it might be good to also understand how Ruby gets to run. I mean, it's all the same with Django and all of the other things as well, but this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
more Ruby
Yeah.
centric.
No, the application I have to deploy have Ruby. I have application. I have Ruby application in the job. So something. So yeah, I'm there for various reasons lah. So
Is
that's
the
why.
Ruby application you have, is it something that was there before or is it a new application?
It's a old-ish application. It's not too bad lah. There's some update, but it's one of the core product lah. So it's something that we won't replace anytime soon.
How old is it?
So need to,
How old?
as company grows, I need to help making. So put this way, the infrastructure needs to lose weight like me lah. So I have
But that they get the infrastructure gained that weight because of all of the business features required. So what was the impetus or what was the reason behind losing weight now? Like did those business requirements suddenly disappear?
uh,
Was it
no,
replaced by something else?
no. Okay, so to not give too much detail because we have some proprietary thing, we want to make sure that the number of business we bring in scale with our ability to grow our infrastructure.
So it's basically leverage because instead of just buying more machines and more hardware, you want to optimize the current applications so that it will run more in the same amount of hardware. Is that it?
Yeah, in short, yes. So so the idea is we need to grow the business should grow without too much impact with the infrastructure. The infrastructure need to able to handle it, and we should not it should not im- it should not affect the growth of the company.
How did that decision come about? Did someone run the numbers that hey we're
Yes.
buying too many servers or we're
If I tell you guys in the coffee session on how applications run now, then you will agree with me that the infrastructure need to join me for exercise.
okay? Yeah. So no,
At least
I'm
I
asking
think at
because some
least you
people.
you
Huh?
identified it.
What?
Yeah, exactly. It's at least you identify it because most of the time these decisions are made just because someone thought that it's expensive, but it's not real. Nobody actually ran the numbers. And so people are focusing on the wrong things. But at least in your
It's
case, someone actually did.
Yeah, and also as somebody with experience, it just doesn't make sense to run business that way anymore lah. It's something that obvious lah as a technical person. So
It really
it's
depends. I mean, sometimes business decisions are like that. That becomes your unique business selling point. Like that's
yeah,
something that only your business can do. That's why it has to be manually done by
correct,
people.
correct,
But
correct. I think it's
sometimes you
still
just
fair.
need to sink in like technology so that
Mhm.
everything's just smoothly working.
Correct. So yeah, it's something. I mean, we need to balance between both, but in short, yes. So that's my job. Except I still have the code and all that. So and I code in Ruby, interestingly, and JavaScript, interestingly.
How do you find it as a Python developer?
Magical. Put it this way, Django, even though that's the closest thing to Ruby, right?
I think Ruby is like a mix between, if I would put in it's like a child of Python and Perl.
It
So
has more with Perl, more like commonalities with Perl than Python.
so
I would say Python and Ruby both have a lot of influences from Perl.
yeah. No, I caught an N, and it's not there.
Release it. Release
No,
the
I
crack.
will
So
release it later. I
so
will
speaking of magic, like so before standardizing on Puma, which is the default web server for Rails,
Yeah.
there were different web servers. One of them would be Unicorn, the other would be
I
Rainbows.
used that before.
So you have Unicorn and Rainbows, like really digging in on that magical feeling. But that's actually one of the things that you so that's the idea behind many of the libraries. It's about the DSL, the domain specific language. Like for example, was it Puppet? No, not Puppet. Chef. Chef is written in Ruby, and actually you're writing Ruby code when
Puppet is
you're
written
doing chef recipes. But it doesn't feel like Ruby. It feels like its own language. That's how people generally intend their libraries to be used as.
So in Django, I give an example in Django. Everything that we import, everything that we need must be imported. All right, everything we need must be imported. Everything we need must be imported, and everything that we configure, everything that we can't read is must be configured inside configuration file, which is why Django is very tedious. It's actually very tedious for this reason. But which is why there's cookie cutters to set up default configuration and all that. But things must be imported so that we know where it comes from. Ruby, on the other hand, will get things like it automatically comes from places.
Ruby is the same. You still have to require files. Rails does the auto require. So they're different.
Rails do a lot of those things for us when they say it scares me. Django, on the other hand, they kind of force you to.
I cannot put them on par with each other
Yeah.
because Python Django is still if I want to say in terms of the feature is just still a subset of what Rails is offering.
Correct. So Django, they provide a lot of libraries and all that, which is why some Python guys prefer things like Flask. Flask have some of their magic, which is also ridiculous, but you generally know where the magic comes from. So
Yeah, if you spend a few years with a magical framework like Rails, then you get used to it. And the advantage here is that every Rails application is the same. Like you can switch to another Rails application and they're all the same because they all follow the same rules. They all follow the same like standardization. Unlike, for example, if you go from one React project to another, because React does not have all of these standardization, you can use anything you want.
Yeah.
Then it becomes like a
I would say,
PHP,
yeah.
like
I
custom
would say-
PHP site.
I would say React is the code quality and formatting wise very vastly different per person because also it's like a library.
yeah.
So like even on the state management, nobody can agree on the same statement. Some people prefer the React Redux. Some people prefer modbacks. Like
Or the new React 17 context API thing,
yeah, I don't like
the
that.
use reducer.
So
I mean,
I don't mind that things that relies on it, but personally, I don't like the context API. It's unless somebody has to do it lah. If everybody writes their own, it's really
I would say it's good. So the thing about context is that it's like a stopgap. If you just really need a full state for your application, just use one of the full state libraries like Redux or something like that. It's like you're in this, either you don't need a full state for your application or you need a full state. If you go bit in between, it becomes very difficult to move into a full state later on when your application expands. That's what I get the feeling from the context stuff. Use state and use effect is fine because that's like really at the bottom level uh, of the API calls. But if you
So,
really need full state, you'd
uh-huh.
rather use Redux or something else.
So Django had a don't have a standardization problem because they kind of like this is the only way, and the community say like, yeah, you can go crazy, but please do it this way, and everybody just do it this way lah. So we don't have
Well,
the
in
same.
Rails, you have no choice.
Yeah,
You have to
correct.
do it like that. Otherwise, you have to write your own configuration files, and it
Yes.
like most of the time, those configuration files are not documented. You have to look at the source to find out how they're done because you're not really expected to do custom configuration of a Rails application.
Yeah. So that's where I think there's a culture difference. It occurs to me because it occurs to me that Django people that I know are somewhat still assistant people. So as a result,
aka neckbeard.
huh?
Neckbeard.
Yeah. So as a result, we're not comfort. Like me, we're not comfortable with magic. But they're just me. They're just me.
The
So
gender ratio for Django also like a bit skewed towards the male.
Yeah.
yeah, especially the philosophy of that, especially with the founder, uh, the 37 Signals people, the Basecamp people, right?
Yeah.
They have a lot of these books on getting things done. So basically, the philosophy is rather than spend time getting the perfect configuration, we'll give you the configuration. It's not perfect, but it's the same for everyone else, and then we'll get things done with that. And it's just something less to think about. And
Well,
they're the same
actually,
people who were promoting remote work, all of these things.
I mean, Django people almost never change the configuration. We almost do things the same way. It's just that we are comfortable that we know where the things comes from. It's just one of those things, lah.
I guess
Right?
that's it's like, I mean, it's the same thing with Rails. Like,
Yeah.
where should I put my controllers? It's the app controllers, even though there's no config file that says it will be on the app controllers. So I
Yeah,
guess it's
that's the
more of a
It's
fate
relying more on
thing.
convention, I would say, right?
yeah. So
Mhm.
that's the difference, lah. So which is why I find the Python guys and Ruby guys are very
No,
different.
swimming, put it this way, I find Django pretty messy as well.
Ah,
Magical as well. As a
yeah, I
non-Django
know.
person, I find Django pretty magical as well for some parts.
Yeah, I know. I just more comfortable knowing where to import
I'm
stuff.
one of those Python people that didn't do Django at all.
Yeah. So
Zoom,
yeah,
Zoom is another don't be bothered. It's
yeah,
another. Everything is explicit there, but it feels like writing Java
yes.
in Python.
So okay, so that's my job. And the last thing is a short one. I think that every dev that comment on the vaccine site failure, uh, only get things very partially.
Yeah. I would not downplay the complexity lah of that lah.
Yeah,
Not
correct,
something not something I wish it on. I mean to, or I mean whatever that happened to my enemy.
correct, correct. The money may not be worth that much. It may not be worth that much, but it's not a easy thing to run. Even a ticket site only get a fraction of the vaccine uptake. So that's why actually. So it's more similar to ticket site than a news site. A news
Well,
site is almost forever.
the thing about the ticket site comparison is that you're selling limited tickets to an audience that's way more than the number of tickets that you have.
It's the
And
same actually. It's the
what do you
same
mean the
for the
same?
vaccine site.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I said.
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
why it's an analogy, right? It's an
And
analogy because they're the same. And so the
correct.
thing there is that you have the same, like you can always imagine it as if it's something physical. Like how would you do it if this was a physical event with limited
Yeah,
tickets and you have people like now you have a line and then you have a limited time to do it. Like how
Yeah.
would you do the same thing, right?
correct.
And so, for example, other countries would do lotteries. Other
Yeah,
people would like just like do for like numbers and then do the actual filling in of the form of your
yeah,
details and the payment like somewhere else in a different
yeah.
queue. So there are things to be learned in the real world that can be applied to software, and that's where architecture comes in. Like your real
Yes.
world experiences will shape how you design your architecture.
And often, maybe you don't need a website for this case for the first place
I think
because
I should share in the random channel. Sean actually wrote an article. Yeah,
yeah,
the underlying problem might not be the website lah.
yeah, correct. So for example, quite a few of the dev that I know of will suggest things that go to your doctor and apply for it, and that makes sense. That is your load balancing. This is your
In fact,
queue.
I
This,
heard that some doctor get their I don't know. I cannot verify it, but I heard rumors that doctors were assigned some doctors are given vaccines.
which they are frontliners. So
Not really that final, as in they given vaccines that they can administer to other people.
okay,
So I'm not sure that is a cut queue or not. I don't know about details.
yeah, but the point is maybe technology. Maybe you do not need that kind of case, lah. But the reason you have that is because you have another disinformation, which is one goal, all the route you go all the way forever. So yeah, so the lesson I think for the vaccine side is don't trivialize.
Yeah,
Everybody can have a solution.
especially at scale, small problems that we overlook can propagate.
Yeah. So and one thing that I introduced to the current thing I work with is measure. It's something that I
Yeah, always
learned.
measure.
It's something I learned from you guys, actually engineers, my people, and also something that I learned from some of my previous workplace. We need to measure because often your assumption may be wrong. So you're more likely to have so it's easier for you to have something simple than measure your way out.
Yeah. Instead of guessing
So
lah, and try to optimize the wrong stuff.
correct, because everyone have opinion. Everyone have opinion, but to know whether it works, you have to measure
Yeah.
seriously. And also you can also give opinion when you don't have the full context. I suspect the team may be too small and short deadline, but that's just me. I don't have the
Yeah.
full.
I don't know the details. It just I cannot the thing
Yeah,
that is I cannot trivialize it lah, basically.
yeah, correct. Because you will see that a lot of people have opinion from using different databases to Cloudflare and whatnot. It's
Yeah.
likely it also you need to measure to be sure, and if you can't, then
No,
no way.
I think they should have just used MongoDB. I think that should have
Yeah,
solved their scaling
web scale.
issues.
Yes, we should just use
That
DynamoDB.
was their problem. That was a
Yes,
problem.
or use DynamoDB. That's guaranteed to solve all of a scaling problem.
You can solve problem with by putting in your credit cards.
Yes, now 70 million worth of credit cards. I have enough. Let's not go there. So that's my final opinion
Yeah.
on the vaccine side lah. Uh,
I think to
you can
add
have all
from
the
my side.
opinion. You're likely to be wrong, because you won't know until you measure it. That's my thing, and that's probably my final opinion on the vaccine side, and that's it lah. Because there's a lot of noise and a lot of noise that goes nowhere. So I think that's it for today.
Yeah,
Right, 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 right,
right.
right. So that's it for today.
See you next
Next
week.
week,
Probably Next week would be the roadmap, unless we have other topics again to talk about.
Correct.
Other hot topics.
I need to find people to interview.
You can interview Sean for his thoughts. He already wrote the article. He has a lot of things to say. So
Yes.
maybe you can talk about that as well.
Yes. Next time, next week, or maybe I show off my competition entry.
Mm.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So with that said, shall we say goodbye, Dan?
Yeah. Bye. Good
Yes.
night. Take care.
Like, share, subscribe.
Yeah.
Bye. See you
Oh, by
guys
the way,
next
if you need a job, talk to me. That's all.
week.
Bye.
Swimming in